Hey guys, we're back again for another video, and in this video today we're going to be working on a drawing of a figure, a female figure, and we're going to be working in a mixture of charcoals, a little bit of graphite, and some ink. Now this is a series that I've started on the side apart from my paintings, which serves the purpose to do some smaller scale artworks and something that can be done a little bit more frequently in and around the artworks, the larger artworks, and offer something a little smaller scale but with the same feel as what some of the larger paintings were doing. So again, it's a series that's going to tie into the figurative artworks that I've been doing with lots of rendering and beautiful figures, pretty faces, long wavy hair, just a style I'm drawn to, and I tend to really go towards that. I've always done figure painting and comic book superheroes and things of that nature, and found myself drifted more towards drawing the feminine form. So with this particular drawing, painting, mixed media, I'm working on a high art board, which is a board you can get at most local art stores. You can get some smaller ones in places like Michael's, but a more specialty art store like the Sears in some of the bigger centers would have varying sizes of these high art boards. And they'll have the surface will be slightly coarser, which will allow for the pencils and graphites to take, and maybe a little bit of watercolor, a little bit of inking, that kind of thing. So for this particular drawing, I'm using varying degrees of graphite. I like working with the 6Bs and 8Bs, and then mixing that in with charcoal. I have also started playing around with some Conte, so really it's just mixing it all in. But how I'm starting with this particular drawing was to go right in and get some of the outline worked in first, like a super light roughed in sketch, and then kind of start building up from the shadows, the tones, the grayscale tones, and build those up. So I'm just going between my shader, my different varying degrees of hard and soft generals, charcoals, which I have a kit of that. And as you can see here, I'm taking my liner brush and a little bit of watered down ink and just sort of like adding in those darker values where I want it to pop a little bit more, have a little bit more contrast. And something to note right here, I'm using a bamboo brush for the hair because it just kind of helps get that sort of swervy feel. You can go kind of wide to a fine point, and that's why I really enjoy working with the bamboo brush. And if I want to work a little finer in some details, I'll use a kind of a smaller liner brush. So once I've established a lot of the tonal areas with the graphite and a little bit of charcoal, then I kind of come in here and almost sort of wash in some of the darker inks with some varying transparencies of water. So here I'm using a flat brush just to spread it around and then work on some of the details of the hair, move that throughout, use the bamboo brush just to just kind of fill in some where the highlights and lowlights are going to be. So then you start to create this 3D dimensional thing where the figure starts to pop off the page a bit more. So it's really a layering process of just putting some values down, backing away, and then kind of going back in over and over again until you get the depth you want. A lot of problems that more beginner artists make is that they don't go sort of far enough with their rendering. They kind of stop too early, and it's sort of lighter, and it could benefit from a little bit more contrast. And this is something that my art graphic design teacher taught me. He looked at one of my paintings and a drawing in particular and said, you just didn't work it long enough, far enough depth enough. So that's something I'm cognizant of now. I try to, really make sure the layers are there. And you can see here, I'm just keep adding to the hair and some layers and going over and then adding little sort of softer freehand swirls for the hair. And then you start to create this more full volume look, and the artwork tends to start having a lot more depth to it. So that's something I've been experimenting with, and really I find, as far as hair goes and everything, really makes the image a lot more dynamic. So yeah, like I'm saying, this is kind of freeing. You can do something a little smaller scale. You can do it at a table or at a desk or sit in bed, and that's why I brought this kind of style back into what I've been doing and offering it as an option too, for prints and things I can make available on my website, on my Etsy shop. And it doesn't have to be like a massive, 23 by 36 or 48 by 48 oil painting on canvas and grayscales, although I love doing those. It's been really nice and freeing to be able to go in between. So, and these can be done a little more promptly. Here I'm using a kind of like a black liner marker pen, drawing pen, and just going over some sections to make them pop a bit more, add a little bit of flair, some fine lines, and I like to use a little bit of hatching and just hatching into those areas. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm grabbing like some white, either watercolor or gouache. Gouache is something I started using recently, and it's more opaque than the watercolor, so it's a good choice for popping in some lighter white highlights in certain sections. So you can see in the hair, that's what I did there. So I'm just going around the whole artwork and adding in the values in the hand and everything, and just trying to start tying it all together. The hair is probably my favorite part to do, but then once that's done, everything starts to kind of pull together. So, and then all you have to do is kind of step back and just start shading in the rest. So yeah, so you can see here that the artwork's starting to pull together pretty nicely, and start working towards the bottom aspect of things. Also, what I enjoy about these art pieces is they're easy to photograph and easy to make available, like on my Etsy website, on my Society 6 site, things like that, to turn them into art prints. So that's been very helpful as well. And it becomes a good source of just keeping things fresh with the algorithm a little more frequently. Oil paintings can take quite significantly a longer time to complete. So that's how that's what I found these. So that's why I brought them back this year. I do need to be doing quite a few more, but bit by bit they'll start to come together. And I went out and bought some colorful gouaches for this reason, some smaller brushes, some watercolors. Basically got myself all set up and prepped, to start pumping these out a little more often. So I have a few on the go, but I just got to finish them up. So one of the things that how the charcoal works nice too is once you sort of outlined an area and everything, I don't use a ton of ink here, just a little bit. And what's happening is the water that's on the brush is helping the charcoal just to kind of become part of the painting. Just as you hit it with some water, it tends to just darken that section. It gives it kind of like a charcoal watercolor look or an ink wash look, depending. So yeah, I love doing the painting like toned legs and following those smooth lines down. It's just a lot of fun for me to work on that aspect of the figure. So yeah, I'm trying to get a lot more videos up. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing this year as well, building up the channel and getting more works up there. And so here I felt the painting, or the drawing, painting slash mixed media, was lacking in some vibrancy in terms of colors, which I love black and whites, but I thought adding a blast of contemporary drippy art would be really cool. So here I have a mixture of, I'm trying to remember, I think it was acrylics actually. I tend to take some acrylics and water those down as I find they're a bit more vibrant. But it could be watercolor, a mix of both, or a little bit of gouache. And I just sort of water that down, get the effect I want, and then put some up on the board and just let it drip and not really care where it goes as much. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just sort of filling in the areas and making the art a little more vibrant, starts to pop off the page a little bit more, while leaving the subject black and white, grayscale monotone. And then finally, I'll add a little bit of distressing to the work, grabbing some black and just splattering it, or grabbing some white and splattering it. You know, I try to be uniform about it, not too random, but a little bit random. And then one of the last things is painting in some sections that indicate that the subject is sitting on a fold-out chair, without being too specific with the outlining of it. So sometimes one thing I'm learning is to leave things a little bit unfinished. And that's it. So thanks for joining me, guys, and have a good day.